All right, guys, this is a 1991 Honda TRX 250X, and I had it running the other day, but I noticed that right out of here, there's a ton of oil just bleeding out. So I tore it all down and replaced the gasket, but I must have done something incorrect because now it does not shift gears, and it sounds really rough, like the piston's really rough, and I do see one drip of oil right there. So I must have, I'm gonna check that out. There must be something bad. So I'm gonna take this thing apart. Got the engine here ready to work. Definitely a necessity. Gotta have the gloves. And I'm gonna use this little box to kind of organize all my parts here. So if anybody else can relate to that. All right, let's go. Okay, now that we're at the flywheel part, I gotta get this bolt off. And I actually saw a cool trick on how to do that. So you take the spark plug out and then you feed rope into the top end. And once it's in there, it'll kind of protect everything. So you're not like cranking on anything you shouldn't be cranking on, or, you know, it just puts a lot of pressure in there, and it's just a nice soft, non-abrasive surface for everything to smash up against, and you can get some torque on that. So I'm gonna do that now. Okay, here's a mid teardown update. You know, I was saying it was scratching around. What it sounded like in the pistons. These are new piston rings, and I examined that. I'll clean that out real good, but I don't think I saw anything that was too concerning. Everything looks good at first glance. It looks like, there's like a crack on this housing, which I'll take a better look at this, just to make sure nothing's leaking. I know whenever I was pulling this apart and putting it back together, this isn't the greatest thing to see in the gasket, where it's part of it's hanging out here, so I'm sure that's where the oil was dripping. See that? That's all right. We'll replace that. I'll show you how to make one. For the gears not working, you see that little hole right there, and then your little button guy right here. I'm not 100% positive that was lined up like that. It could have been off a little bit. Everything in here did feel pretty tight, so like this is off, but you really wouldn't notice it unless you took it off. When I took it off, I noticed that, and thought that probably could have been it. But anyway, one more thing: whenever you're pulling this case off, it kind of is a pain in the ass, but you get it off, pry it up a little bit. Right here, right behind here, there's a pin, and it lines up right here. And whenever you're pulling this off, if you can avoid pulling that pin out, it'll save you some trouble later. And also, once you get it to where you can kind of wiggle it out, press down on this your gear right here, and that'll kind of save you from pulling your transmission completely apart. It's just kind of all loose in there. When I get this case off, I'll show you what it looks like, and then we'll keep going from there. Okay, I pulled that off pretty reasonably easy. So here's kind of the aftermath of the transmission gears as to what I was talking about. This is kind of a real son of a bitch. So let's see if it'll go. So it didn't seat all the way like I wanted it to. This pin should sit on this washer. So and here's the bearing. Obviously I can just pull that out and put that back. See this little piece right here? That will stick to about anything, but don't lose it. I pulled it apart and it actually dropped in my chair down there, and it was I bought a new one. Oh, of course it's right here. Here it is. Here's the part number. It was something like $8 or $9 to replace, plus like $4 or $5 shipping. So don't lose that part. Do yourself a favor, go get a guide. I print everything off so that I could make sure I'm putting everything back together right. Man's going around. If you start pulling out the transmission, which in a lot of cases you have to, all my papers are flying everywhere. And you might not know which way's up or down or which gear's what. This will give you a great view as to how it is reassembled and aligned. There it is. Great to have. So I'll tell you about how to put this back. So if you pull this out, obviously it's not aligned. There's a couple things in here. There's this little shaft, and then there's a washer, and then there's two sleeves in here. If you look down into that hole, you could see where it should align all the way down. And if you and you don't want to scrape anything up, but if you put a screwdriver down here and gently kind of find it and find the guide, you'll be able to drop this pin back in there. If not, you could just slowly move the gears or move the piston. You see how the screwdriver is moving a little bit? If you find where it's adjusted to where you can see all the way down, it might take a few tries, but that's how you do it. So I'm gonna put that back together, and then I'm gonna show you how to make a gasket, and then we'll keep going. All right, guys, I'm gonna make a gasket for this. Here's what I use. Get at O'Reilly's or the auto parts store. It's but you got to use the suggested for you know, oil and things like that, water, gasoline. I'll try to make this quick. I'll explain how this is done, and then I'll just do it kind of quick. Here's your material. This guy. Line it up so it's all on all the edges. Just like that, almost. I'll try it this way. You don't want anything hanging off, obviously. Close. Okay, I got it. So take the pen, trace it, make sure you drill holes. Easy. You go in here and get these sides too. I also put little indicators where bolts go. So I'm going to go over that. I'm going to cut it all out. Make sure you flip on the other side. Make sure you're not missing any bolts on the other side. But I'll show you how that goes, and you see how it happens. Okay, got my gasket on the engine. Here's one thing I like to do is I like to just put the bolts through the holes and make sure everything aligns, everything looks good. If you see anything that's like wavy like this, see that? That's not that great. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the bolt, one of these bolts out. Like that. And I'm just gonna use that hole punch and just make a tiny adjustment so that it's lined up better and doesn't get wavy. Also, this is a good opportunity to look through, make sure all these holes are just like that. One's not perfectly lined up. That's a mounting bolt, not terribly important. This looks like it's might touch the gear. I'll trim that up a little bit. Same with over here. I'll just trim that just a little bit, but that'll save me some hassle later. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'm gonna put the cap back on, and then I'll come back to you. Oh yeah, this guy again. Make sure this is aligned with the groove. It will be a nightmare if it is not. Anyway. All right, so now I got this the case back on. It's all bolted. I just put that on kind of hand tight so I could start using that to maneuver the piston a little bit. I put this lever on there so I could check to see if its gears are working. Everything looks to be in order. I did find right here in the top end, I've got a bolt that is snapped off. Let me get this out of here. Right there. You see that's in there. So what I'm gonna do is drill right into the top of that, hammer down a little impact driver, and then just back it out. So I'll be back. Okay, this part's more important, so I'm slowing it down. We've got to do the cam chain. You got to put the cam in, do the timing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this cam in. See, there's an F right there, an L right there. You want these lobes, these egg things pointed down, so the F is going to be up. You're going to loop your chain around your cam, and also this sprocket, you're going to put it in there. Don't tighten this up until the chain's on, but what you're wanting to do, you see these marks right here? This top mark should be straight up, and then that mark and that mark need to be level with this when the chain is on there. When you're doing anything with the timing, you need to make sure that it's top dead center. And let me see if I could show you what that's looking like. Take these off. This is 17 mil. You get in there. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to see it, but there is a, yeah, it's too dark, but you can see a line that has a line and then an F, and then just above that is a line and a T. So you move it down to where you see that T, and that's how you know it's top dead center. So once it's there, put everything together, and then we'll move on to the tensioner here. All right, here's what that looks like. Top dead center is about right there. If you go over here, you got that F facing up, lobes down, and see these marks? These marks are in line, so that's where it should be, just like that. Okay, so this is the tensioner. It's on that side of the engine. You take that bolt off, you unscrew it. This does not push in. You have to have a small flat head. Hold it like that. And when you turn this, let's see if I can find one. Hold on. I think maybe. There it is. Whenever you turn this, that goes down. It's just a spring-loaded little thing. You've got to keep pressure on it, because when you let go, it'll pop back up. So what you do is you have that retracted, put it in there. You've got to keep the screwdriver on there, put a bolt in, then let go, and it should recoil and tighten your cam chain. All right, we've got the top end all back. Everything's rebuilt. Everything looks good. Before you put the caps on, if you've got a feeler gauge, you go into these the top end engine specs, and right where it says valve stem to guide clearance, you go intake is 0.12, exhaust is 0.14. So obviously, you know, if that's your intake, it's where the air is coming in, everything, gas is coming in. Exhaust is right here, your muffler comes out here. So, you know, if it's the right here, 0.12 is the intake. You get your feeler guide, 0.12, and then you need to adjust the gaps right here. I've already done it. I don't need to do it again. Then 0.14 right here. Just get like a 10 mil and a screwdriver, and you back out the nut, and then adjust this driver right here, the screw right here, to where the feeler guide is pinched but mobile. It doesn't have to be like completely stopped, but make sure it's like got some good contact. You tighten that nut back up, and then you're done. So I'm gonna put the caps back on and get this engine mounted and see what happens, I guess. All right, here's the final product. Got the engine mounted, got all the plastics back on, repainted them, reupholstered the seat, got all the new vinyl cut, new headlights, grips, chains on there, a new chain. Put a tail light on there. So let's see how it goes.